Нет, там надо.
Здравствуйте, уважаемые радиослушатели. В эфире радио Ethno FM на волне 87,7. И мы начинаем трансляцию финансового форума, который в эти секунды начинается в помещении All Point Events по адресу 4366 Аубурн Бульвар. Давайте будем слушать и вникать в то, что говорят его участники. А это Андрей Бондарь, Роман Митрос, Светлана Осокина, Дима Бродский, Амир Чачович и Том Маклоклин.
Family, Finance and Business Forum. My name is Svetlana Ayotka. I am a journalist and the host of this event, also the managing partner of the City of Goodness Business Club. And I'm happy to introduce our speakers tonight, and let's give them a round of applause. Okay, Andrei Bondar, financial advisor, the one who decided to make this forum happen.
Right.
Roman Mitros, mortgage expert. Svetlana Asokina, business attorney. Dima Brodsky, tax expert. Okay, then Amir Kakovich, real estate coach. Give them a round of applause. It's like, and our special guest, Tom McLaughlin. I just wanted to ask our speakers shortly introduce themselves very shortly, and then we will be starting answering the questions.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to host the semi-annual event, and thank you for coming, those people to tuning in, and our guests from Frontier Asset Management Group that flew in from Denver. My name is Andrew Bondar. I've been in the business for 28 years. This is my 29th year, actually. I'm a financial advisor that focuses on wealth management, accumulation, and tax-efficient distribution. My passion is to help people make money and navigate through this difficult investment in financial world by educating them. On the personal note, some fun fact, I like to ride motorcycles. So if anyone wants to join for a ride on the weekends, I'm happy to ride with you. Have 2 Doberman dogs that waiting for me at home. And again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Andrei. Again, applause.
My name is Roman Mitros. I'm a mortgage expert / senior loan officer. I own a company, Primetime Mortgage, that I opened over 10 years ago. I've been in the mortgage industry for over 27 years. I consider myself pretty knowledgeable about the mortgage programs, about the details of the mortgage world. So I can probably answer most of the questions. If I don't know the answer, I know a way of figuring those answers out. And I enjoy playing golf. So if anybody wants to join me to play golf once a week, let me know. And I'm happily married to my wife, Anastasia, who's also my marketing director. And other than that, I just enjoy what I do, and I help people to save money and pick the best mortgage products that's out of those many mortgage products available in the market. So I would be happy to help people to save money.
Thank you, Roman. Svetlana Asokina, business attorney.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today in person and on the radio. I'm an attorney. I specialize in estate planning, trust administration, probate, business formation, and very recently I joined a firm, and now I'm also doing real estate, and I represent landowners. So if anybody has questions about any of those areas, I'll be happy to talk to them about it.
Thank you, Svetlana. Dima?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dima Brodsky. I'm an enrolled agent. I'm licensed by Internal Revenue Service to represent taxpayers. I also certified tax resolution specialist. My specialty is represent taxpayers before IRS and other state tax agency. I enjoy solving the problems.
Thank you. Amir?
My name is Amir Chachkovich. I'm a real estate broker for over 20 years. Actually, I did real estate even in Germany when I lived in Germany. Since 2005, I'm selling real estate here, and not only in California, because I have a group of 270 agents in 15, 16 different states. So definitely I'm helping people to buy dream homes and investments, not only here, but in other states too, pretty much to build a wealth with a real estate as a vehicle. Yeah. And by the way, I'm also Ironman racer. So if anybody wants to do the bike rides here during the weekend or during the day, I'm here for you.
Thank you, Amir. Amir also has PhD in marketing, and as he mentioned, he is an Ironman athlete. So yeah. Okay, thank you. And our special guest and special speaker, Tom, you have a...
Thank you. So, I'm Tom McLaughlin. I'm the regional director for Frontier Asset Management's West Division. So like Amir, too many states to list, but about 14 states I cover. I travel around those states and meet with financial advisors like Andrew to help their clients implement our investment strategies and reach their financial goals in a smoother and less volatile and less painful fashion, ideally. My great passions are fly fishing, hiking, and snowboarding. I live out in Colorado, and that affords me to do those quite a bit, which I love. So nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Tom, and we'd love to ask you to share some inspiration speech with our audience. It will be very useful as for us and then for our speakers and also for the guests.
Hello, can we hear me? Alrighty. All right, well, thanks so much for joining me. So I'm going to do a quick 10-minute spiel on a market update. I promise it won't be too boring. Don't fall asleep on me. We'll get through this pretty quick and we can get to your questions and make it a bit more interactive. So we've got a picture of the Teton Mountains and the Snake River here in Wyoming. Not only is it a very scenic picture, it's an important picture because we are headquartered in Sheridan, Wyoming, of all places. We like to say we're about 2,000 miles from Wall Street, doing things a little bit more different, a little more authentic and independent than some of the bigger names out there. And I'm going to give you all a trivia question here. My favorite trivia question about Wyoming. Does anyone want to guess how many escalators there are in the entire state of Wyoming? Anyone want to throw a number out there? 2. Nailed it. There are 2 total escalators. There's one in Casper and there's one in Cheyenne. And while there are 2 escalators, there is only one investment strategist in the entire state of Wyoming. And that is us, Frontier Asset Management. So we like to think we're a little bit different in that regard. Real quick here, so we've got market returns here on year to date. This is through June 30th, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, and 10 year. There's one recurring theme that you can make out of this. The blue bar here is US large stocks, which is, as you all know, the S&P 500. You're probably very familiar with that name. US stocks have done incredibly well. In fact, on the 1 year, they've been up 26.7%, which is pretty astounding. Now, having said that, when things go up in price, typically the future return doesn't look as strong, and investment strategists like us at Frontier are starting to say, all right, it's time to start looking at some of these other areas of the market, like developed stocks, international stocks from places besides the US, emerging market stocks, places that aren't necessarily developed but are growing pretty rapidly, and different other multi-asset investments that you can access besides just investing in stocks like the S&P 500. So although the S&P has done very well, it is worth noting that when you invest in the S&P these days, you're investing a good chunk of your assets in a very small amount of companies. So the S&P 500 is what they call market cap weighted, meaning the larger the size of your company, the larger it takes up within that index. And so we've got a little graph here that shows in December 31st, 1999, 27% of your dollars invested went to the top 10 stocks in the index, essentially because they'd grown so big in that tech bubble that happened in the 2000s. 27% of every dollar, $2.70 of every $10 was going to those companies. Now we've reached a point that we've never seen before, which is 37% of your money is going into those massive companies like NVIDIA, Meta, and names like that, which can be a good thing when those names are going up in price, but it can be a pretty dangerous thing to have so much of your money invested in a small amount of companies if those do start to go down in value, which is exactly what we saw happen in the early 2000s. Here's a little example. We've all heard of NVIDIA. You can see over this roughly 8-year period, NVIDIA is up 15,000%, which is pretty incredible. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, how do you know if someone owns NVIDIA? They'll tell you because it's done so well. Now, if we look at Cisco in the 2000s, they had kind of a similar market trajectory. They were actually up 14,500%. So not 15,000, but still pretty solid. I'd be happy to be up 14,500% on my investment personally. But when things go up that high in value that quickly, there's a lot of risk involved in that. And you can see from March 27 of 2000 to March 28 of 2001, roughly a 1-year period, your investment went down 78%. And that's important to think about because although you can go up 14,500%, you can only go down 100%, and then you've lost your entire investment. So no matter how high up you go, these things can unravel quickly, and you really need to think about kind of diversifying your portfolio in risky periods like now. And so what we're doing at Frontier is one thing, we're leaning into small cap stocks. So large cap stocks are typically, your larger companies, larger market size. Small cap stocks are smaller companies. And so right now, smaller stocks are cheaper relative to the more expensive companies. And that's the same thing we saw in the early 2000s. And from that point for 10 years out, small stocks outperformed large stocks by about 80%, which is a pretty good margin. And I think as an investor, you'd be very happy to have been invested in those rather than US large stocks. Another thing to note is we've all probably heard of like the 50-50 portfolio or the 60-40 portfolio, meaning you have about 60% in stocks, 40% in bonds. That's meant to have the stocks provide growth and the bonds provide protection. What we saw in 2022 is that stocks and bonds have become very correlated, meaning they move together. The bonds aren't really providing protection for you. And what's interesting to look at, this is a graph showing stock and bond correlations. So it was really only in the period of 2000 to 2020 where they were negatively correlated. Typically, they are positively correlated, meaning they move together. The 40% doesn't really provide the protection that you would want bonds to provide. And so what we've done is we've invested in what are called managed futures. It gives portfolio managers the ability to go long to profit when things go up, or short to profit when things go down on different investments across the industry, whether they be interest rates, commodities, currencies. You can invest in a variety of different instruments that way. I'll draw your attention to the orange line here is the market, the S&P 500, and the blue, green, and purple and gold line are those managed futures funds. And if you look here in 2022, when the market was going down, these funds were perfectly negatively correlated and going up and providing that protection and ballast on the downside when there was risk in the market. So real quick, I'll sum things up here so we can get back to the panel. We believe the S&P 500 has concentration issues. We believe if you invest your money in there, you're putting a little bit too much money in those bigger companies and you're exposing yourself to a fair amount of risk. We also believe that expected returns for the S&P aren't as strong as they have been, so it's worth looking at different parts of the market. We believe that right now it's a great time to be looking at holding a more diversified portfolio, of small cap stocks, international stocks, and emerging market stocks, which actually do have pretty good expected returns relative to the S&P 500. So good time to kind of take the profits that you've made in the S&P over the past 10 or so years and diversify into some other asset classes that should reward your investment better over the next 10 years. So thank you very much. I think that was hopefully around 10 minutes. And any questions you all have, please let us know.
Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Really useful information, and I'm sure everyone is really interested in that because we all want to be successful in our family, finance, and business. And this is the name of our forum. And the best part of this forum is that we can all ask questions from our experts. And I'm reminding you that we have a QR code which you can use to put your questions. Also, there will be an opportunity to ask questions in person. And I have the first question for Amir Chachkovich. Is now a smart time to buy a home, or should I consider waiting for a better opportunity?
First question for me.
Yeah.
So it's never a good time and never a bad time to buy. So you need to buy when it's much better to own the house than rent the house. A lot of people waiting for interest to go down, which by the way did go down now. And then we will not probably see 2 or 3% interest for a long time. So now, if you end up waiting for 2 or 3%, you will probably never will buy. And meanwhile, you're paying 100% interest through the rent, because whatever rent you're paying, it could be $1,000, $2,000. All this money is gone to the rent for somebody else's mortgage. So to answer your question, is it a good time or bad time to buy? Depending on your financial situation and your your current situation. If you find a house you like and you need, you should buy, because it's better to buy now than in 5 years or 10 years, because within 5 or 10 years, historically looking, any asset, real estate asset appreciates.
Thank you. And the next question is for Andrei Bonder. What's better to invest in, real estate, stocks, insurance, the 401k, or IRA?
Yes.
Yes. So all these spheres are good to invest in.
It depends. Same question, like you go to a pharmacy, you say, what's the best medication nowadays? Give me the best one. I'll take the best one. So like Amir said, it depends on the situation. So some people might need income. And for those people, you create a portfolio that generates income. That could be real estate property, it could be a bond portfolio, it could be an equity portfolio that you sell off over a period of time. If someone is trying to build wealth, then you create a growth portfolio with opportunities for appreciation over time. And if you have a family or you're really concerned about taxes, then you start looking at tax efficient investments like insurance-based products or some plans that either defer or create tax-free distribution at the end.
Thank you, Andrew. And the next question is for Dima Brodsky. My business unfortunately failed, and it was not paying. I wasn't paying payroll taxes, was held from employees. Now the IRS is demanding payment from me personally. I don't have money. What should I do?
First, there's several things that needs to be considered. First, just because the IRS wants to go against the owner of the business or officer of the business doesn't mean that it's the right things for them to do. So that needs to be evaluated. The second, there is some collection potential issues that if a person can't pay it, there's some solutions. Installment agreements, offering compromise. Unfortunately, bankruptcy won't work in this situation, but there could be some offering compromise, which is a settlement between taxpayers and the IRS.
Thank you, Dmitry. And the next question is for Svetlana Asokina, business attorney. What is trust, and do I need one?
That's a great question. A lot of people ask me about trusts. I know the trusts are more familiar to people who were either born in the United States or grew up here, but trust is a way to protect yourself from probate and also protect yourself in case you lose capacity. Trust is essentially an agreement between you, and it can be you and you serving as trustor and trustee. When you create a trust, and something happens to you, first, you don't have to go through court. Second, if you lose capacity, again, you don't have to go through court, and you can appoint people who will be in charge of your assets while you don't have capacity. And God forbid, if you pass away, you can also decide what is going to happen to your assets then and who is going to benefit from your estate.
Thank you, Svetlana. And the next question is for Roman Mitros. How much longer the home prices will continue to go up?
Basically, the economy in the history of the humanity has the ability to inflate. So dollar deflates, so it's called inflation. So whatever we could have purchased for $1 100 years ago, we cannot buy the same thing now. So the same thing, the same power has the home prices. They go up as the inflation goes up. In the past 100 years, the average appreciation of a home, or the average price that goes up on a house, is about 3% higher than the actual inflation of a dollar. So really, as the world will keep encircling, the home prices will continue on going up.
Roman, and do you have the same mortgage programs as bank, or bank has more?
Good question. Actually, I have 100% of programs that banks have, but bank has only about 10% of the programs that I have. So as an owner of a mortgage company, I have access to every mortgage program available on the market, and banks only have access to the easiest programs available and that they want to do. And so it's much better to speak with the owner of a mortgage company or somebody who is experienced as a broker or a senior mortgage expert in order to obtain the best program for that person's situation and not be limited of what that specific financial institution has to offer.
Thank you. The next question is for Dima Brodsky. Can the IRS penalty be removed?
Yes, there's certain events that preclude person either to file return or pay it. So you always can file a penalty abatement request. There's also from 2018, there's a program, it's called first time penalty abatement. If a person file and pay their taxes within that 3 years, and this particular year, for whatever reason, failed to do so, there's a program that can basically abate penalty basically without even filing any request.
Okay, thank you. Now we just got a question for all the speakers. With interest rates being cut and potentially looking to be cut more, what impacts will have that on inflation, and what is the best way to take advantage of this situation? So whoever wants to start first.
Have my couple cents into it. So basically right now we see that the Federal Reserve started cutting the interest rate. The way we got to that interest rate was because Federal Reserve was trying to fight the inflation, which in the beginning of their first rate cut was at 9.7%. Now the inflation is down to about 2.6%. So the fight has been successful, and the inflation is coming down. Because of this, the Federal Reserve is starting to cut the interest rate, and the normal Federal Reserve rate or overnight banks rate supposed to be on average during the normal economic activity around 2.2, 2.5%. So the banks usually have the margin, the mortgage companies, they have a margin of 2% on top of the overnight banks rate on their normal mortgage interest rate. So for example, if the normal interest rate, overnight rate for the bank is 2.5, once the Federal Reserve will lower the interest rate from current 4.75 to 2.25, if you add 2% to as a margin to this interest rate, which is going to be 4.25. So in the normal economic activity, we should be expecting the interest rate of being around 4.2, 4.5%. So the first rate was cut. If you get current rate that was cut down yesterday to 4.75 plus 2% margin, we can calculate the average current interest rate on a mortgage, which is 6.75%. We know where the interest rate is going. We know that is going to attract more and more people who can afford, who will be able to afford those houses that they will be trying to purchase in, let's say, next year or a year after. So in other words, there's going to be a big demand of people trying to purchase houses. So we know that the prices will continue on going up. What can you do now if you know that next year the prices are going to be higher? You probably can act now and purchase something now. And that's kind of like my answer to that question.
Okay, thank you, Roman. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
From a financial markets perspective, typically those small cap stocks I was talking about, they are able to lend at a lower interest, borrow at a lower interest rate in order to grow their business. So high interest rates can be prohibitive to those smaller companies growing, but as interest rates come down, they can borrow and grow more easily. So it can be a tailwind for smaller companies and small cap stocks in the markets.
Thank you. Actually, I have one more question for Tom. Why is risk management important?
Yeah, so risk management is very important because in that example I gave with NVIDIA and Cisco, so no matter how high up you go, you can only go down 100% and your investment is completely gone. And so as you go down, there's also an asymmetry of returns. A lot of people think if you go down 10, you go up 10, you're back to where you were before. That's not true. If you go down 10, you have to recover 11. If you go down 20, you have to recover 25. If you go down 50, you have to recover 100% to get back to where you were. And that takes something that you can never get back, and that is time. And so the less you lose, the less you have to recover. It's a smoother ride for you overall. And furthermore, what happens to us when we lose money in the markets? We get emotional, and we think we can time the market and go to cash and try and hop back in. Really, it is a matter of timing the market and not time in the market. And if you can manage risk, that gives you a more comfortable ride, and it keeps you from making emotional decisions along the way.
I have a question for Tom. Now, you recommend to diversify the money out of SP 500. Does this mean that you and people you work with currently are not that bullish on SP 500? You think that something is going to go in the opposite direction?
Yep. Yeah. So we never try to kind of time the market and say that a recession is coming or anything like that, but we look at these on a fundamental level. And the whole basis of investing is to buy low and sell high. Currently, if you buy the S&P 500, you're buying high. And it's very likely what'll happen is it might go down in value and you might end up selling low. And so if you look at some of the other spaces of the market, we always look at expected returns you can get from places that you invest. The S&P 500, we see generating about a 6% return over the next 10 years. We see small stocks doing about 9.5%, and we see emerging market stocks doing about 11.5%. So we expect emerging markets to return similar to what the S&P has done over the past 10 years. And it's certainly a time to look at diversifying a little bit. Thank you, Roman.
Why wouldn't everybody invest into the 11% international fund versus 6% of some other funds? Why is one paying higher interest rate? Does it mean higher risk? I mean, if they're paying 11, why would I be also offered an option to invest into an 8% fund or 9% fund? Why not just say, hey, this fund pays 11. Hey, everybody, let's go after this 11%.
Yeah. So returns are never linear, as an investor. So that 11% return is an annualized expectation for about 10 years, but you could have a year that's up 50, down 80, up 30 to get there. It can be a very, very kind of painful and interesting path to get there. And so in order to kind of keep your return steady over time, that's why we say diversify across a couple different asset classes to be able to ensure that you don't get that whole downside and you're not putting all your eggs into one basket.
So you don't recommend to just invest money in one fund that's paying 11%. You recommend to doing between 6, 8, and 11, hoping to get the average of 7.5 or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. We're reducing our S&P, still holding it, and then increasing small emerging international on account of that.
Yeah, because I would be thinking like, why would I want to invest into those 6% if there is 11%?
Right.
You answered the question.
Thank you. Smart questions. And next question is for Amir. What should I consider when I buy property in different states?
Different states. I mean, for the investment purposes, California, as you know, is really not landlord-friendly state, right? So I do have properties here, investments as well, but I'm diversified similar like a market, so in different states and even international. So I buy properties in Panama, international market in Central America. So you need to look on the return on your investment. That's number one. And obviously, real estate, like Roman said, is the best inflation protection, right? So if you have $1,000 in your account with governments telling us 3%, but it's probably more than 3%. But let's say if it's 3%, you're losing 3% every year, right? So from $100, you have 97 next year, and so on. So, but if you just see the cost of everything around us, food, Starbucks coffee, gas, so it's more than 3% what they're trying to tell us. But meaning, so if you have money in a bank account, you're losing money. If you have money in your rental, the best inflation protection is rental, because if inflation goes up, you can raise your rent. Even in California was allowed to raise inflation plus 5%, right? So whatever with a cap of 10. So whatever the inflation is, you can raise the rent over time. So if you're renting for $1,000 in 10 years, the same house will be rented for $1,800 or whatever dollars a month. So that's what you should really look at when you invest in real estate: ROI, return on investment, on the properties and money what you invest in different states.
To something that Amir just brought up, Yes, as a real estate attorney, I can tell you that California is not landlord friendly. And we actually, as a firm, represent a lot of landlords, and UD, which is unlawful detainer, is one of the most often calls that we receive from clients because tenants just don't want to leave and we have to go through court proceedings to evict them properly. And what you can do if you decide to invest in California, because of course, California is one of the biggest economies in the world, and we only expect the prices to keep going up for real property. So if you decide to invest and rent your property out, make sure you pick county that is more landlord friendly. And I'll give you one hint: don't buy rental in San Francisco, because right now we as a firm don't even take clients from there because their laws are very, very strict. So if you ever care about getting consultation, please let us know and we'll be happy to give you some guidance in terms of the better counties for you to invest.
So basically, you are the real estate lawyer. So if anybody needs a lawyer who can represent them in a real estate transaction or something has to do with the real estate, they should be calling you.
Yes, if you are the landowner. So we typically don't represent tenants. There are very few real estate firms that represent tenants, to be honest. But if you're a landowner and you're having issues with your tenant or with your neighbors and somebody's encroaching on your property, you have mold, something is going on, even construction defects, you can reach out to us. We provide 15 to 30-minute free consultations, and we represent people through court proceedings as well.
Just the reason why I double checked with you, I had been receiving a lot of phone calls in the past 3 years, and it's just because I'm known, expert in the mortgage industry, and people call me and they ask me, hey, do you know anybody who speaks Russian, who is a lawyer in real estate? And I'm like, I don't know anybody who really specializes in this. So the fact that you are coming out and saying, hey, I specialize in real estate law, it's a big deal for our community. So I just wanted to emphasize it.
Thank you, Roman. Thank you.
Not just in the Russian community. I mean, we speak English. So it's like some people say, well, next time I'm going to have a Russian speaking person, I'm going to send them your way. And I'm like, Russian is not the only language that I speak. And they're like, what other languages do you speak? And I go, the English.
Right. Yes. So actually, I am the only Russian speaking attorney in the firm. And, if you struggle speaking English, I'll be happy to advise you. And if English is not an issue, we have also other attorneys who can help you as well. So please,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Let's keep going. And the next question is for Andrei. How do you read an investment statement? What key elements should you focus on? And how can you determine if your investments are performing well?
That's a loaded question. So it's like comparing to what? So people look at the statements and they say, well, I'm not doing, or my account is not doing well or doing well. Like comparing to what? What are you comparing to? Funny story comes to mind. Ladies, you know that brand of shoes, Louboutin, right?
Louboutin.
Yeah, the red sole. Yeah, red bottom sole. I have a friend of mine that said that himself and his wife went to a store and they saw this pair of beautiful shoes with crystals in it at $2,000. And he who in the world would pay for those shoes? That's expensive. And then a week later, he comes home from work and he sees that pair of shoes on the table at home. And he's like, oh my word, she just bought those shoes. And she goes, wait a minute. Before you have having a heart attack, let me explain to you. First, I had this really great coupon on this, and then they were closing this line of shoes, and I just bought it for $500. And the guy said, oh, I felt so much richer all of a sudden because I just made $1,500. So it's always comparing to what? So when you invest, you look at the statement. If you invest in equities and somebody's putting in the bank and one person says mine is doing greater than yours, well, you can't really compare. What you need to look is if your portfolio is growth-oriented portfolio and it's invested in equities, did you lose any shares? In most statements, I haven't seen in 29 years in business that people had invested in companies, the publicly traded companies, and all of a sudden their statement shows that they have less shares in the statement. Their value could be lower because it's a cyclical investment. And Stan was saying that if you are investing in various cyclical investments. Some with higher risk can give you great opportunity, but then there's some lower risk that give you stability. When you have converging cycles, then you have stability. The key is then not just to buy it and leave it alone, keep revisiting every quarter, every 6 months, not on a daily basis because it will drive you bananas, but every so often just revisit the allocation that you set. If you bought 5 funds and put 20% in each, that's supposed to be revisited in a quarter and see if one became 50, the other one shrunk to almost nothing. So then you buy something that went down and sell something that went up, buy low, sell high.
Thank you, Andrew. And the next question is for Dima Brodsky. I have an outstanding tax liability spanning several years, and I'm currently unable to pay them. I am seeking advice on this available option to address this matter.
There's several choices what to do with that. It's all based on financial ability of the taxpayers to pay it. There's installment agreement. There's currently non-collectible status, meaning that if person can pay right now, the IRS will basically cease all collection activities for a period of time. There's offering compromise, meaning that there's a program which can settle taxpayers' debt for less than actual value. There's also bankruptcy potentially. So there's a lot of solutions to that particular problem.
And what is an IRS offer in compromise?
It's a settlement between taxpayers and IRS to settle less than a liability or whatever a person owns with IRS. So like, for example, the person owes $100,000, the settlement could be 50, 60,000, depends on financial situation for the taxpayers because there's a special formula to calculate those offers.
Thank you, Dima. And the next question is for Tom. What advice do you have for investing in an election year?
Oh, great question. Don't get emotional, which is easier said than done when there's a lot of things at stake. But, you know, in the long run, companies in the United States seek to maximize profits relative to any scenario they're in. So no one's going to, you know, Apple's not going to stop making iPads just because Kamala wins or Donald Trump wins. At the end of the day, they're going to try and maximize profits relative to their investors and pass those along in the forms of dividends and gains within the stock that you can invest in. So, you know, above all else, if you look historically, years prior to elections, years of elections, and years after elections have historically produced double-digit returns of about 10 to 11 to 12%. Typically in these months kind of leading up to the election, people get a little bit uncertain. Markets can be a little wish-washy, which is kind of what we're seeing right now. But after the election, after the uncertainty kind of drops, I mean, markets above all else hate uncertainty. So once the uncertainty is gone and the fog is cleared and they kind of know what the path ahead is, typically you do see a recovery on the other side after the uncertainty.
Thank you. Andrew, we have some numbers here. When the market drops by 15% and the next one goes up 15%, why don't I get my losses recovered in my account? And why does investing in a 401k work better for some and worse for others?
Mm-hmm. So the second question first, again, depending where people are investing, some people invest in growth opportunity funds, and obviously over time that will look significantly nicer versus someone who by default invested like a very stable bond portfolio, and they're comparing 10 years later and so, well, why is my portfolio is not doing so well, my 401k is not doing so well? It's not the 401k is not doing anything. It's a holding shell. It's like this plastic bottle. What's inside matters. So some people put hot water, some people put cold water, and so it will still hold it the same way, but it will have a different effect. In terms of the percentages, Tom can address that. It was kind of nice. So if the market drops, you could read or watch TV and said market went down by 15%, and then market recovers by 15%, and you think, my account should recover as well, but it does not recover as well because it takes more effort to go up versus going down. So 15% down, it takes 17.64% to go up. The easiest explanation is if you take $1 and you cut it in half, that's 50% loss, right? So if you think, okay, so to make the dollar up, I have to go back 50%. Well, no, if you go 50%, it will be only 75. So in order for 50 cents to go back to the initial dollar, it has to grow by 100%. So that's why if something goes down by a certain percentage, when to go back to the same number, it takes significantly more recovery time and growth to do so. So the less it loses, the easier to recover. The more it loses, the greater the recovery stage will happen.
Thank you, Andrew. And the question for Amir. Do you foresee some prices decreasing in the near future, and what factors might influence this?
I wish I have a crystal ball. Nobody knows. And a lot of people say, experts, guru, price will go up, price will go down. Nobody knows, but we know for fact, looking in the history, price will appreciate over time. So you cannot lose with the real estate investment if you're in a long-term game, right? So if you buy anything, you close the eyes and buy any house and keep that house for 10 years, I'll guarantee you're going to make money, even if it's today is the peak of the market, right? So even that, if you look back in 2005, somebody bought a house very high. If you kept that house for 10, 12 years, you would recover and make money. So now I did a lot of analysis back in since 1950. What is really affecting the home prices, right? A lot of people think, migration, interest rate, etc. So interest rate does affect, but not as much. The biggest thing what I saw really affects in direct proportion. When the market goes up, that trend goes up as well or down. It's building permits, really construction. So back in 2002, 2003, we have in Sacramento County over 22,000 building permits issued. Fast forward to 2010, 11, less than 2,000. So when economy is bad, people not building, people not remodeling. When the economy is good, people building. So right now, new builders are building, which is good sign. So and this is a prediction. The market is going up right now. Of course, now combined with the interest rates, more people will be able to afford. More people will be competing against the same house, and then of course price will go up. If you see a new builder stop building, then run, sell your house as quickly as you can. Probably already too late, but you can gauge the risk.
Another question for Amir. If I'm considering getting my real estate license and entering the industry, what advice would you offer for a successful start?
Call me. Real estate is a great industry. So as you know, not only investing, but working as well. It's not easy industry. 87% of real estate agents getting out of business within 5 years. That's NAR statistics. This is 9 out of 10. But whoever stays in industry for more than 3 years, he will be very successful. And I developed, actually, I have 270 agents. And if you're really thinking about getting a real estate, feel free to reach out to me. My number, my business card is in the back. And it's very easy number. So 916-400-40000. You can text me. I'll send you the link to online school. So you can get a license within 3-4 months. Once you get a license, I will help you to be successful. I have agents as young as 19 years old. So they're just selling houses right now. Will probably make more money than some of his colleagues who finishes high school, college.
Nice. Thank you. The next question is for Svetlana Asokina. Should I add my child on title so he can inherit my home?
That's a wonderful question, and it really depends. Favorite attorneys answer, it depends. First, if your child is under 18, under no circumstances, absolutely no circumstances, I never use the word absolutely, do not add your child to title, because the title company does not care. Your deed will be recorded. The problem occurs when your child is 1 year old, you put him on title, then 5 years later, you would like to sell your home. And guess what? You have to go through court to get a guardian appointed for your child's interest in the property. for you to even sell the house. And then the portion that belongs to the child, let's say 1/3, will be in a blocked account for the next 18 years until the child turns 18 and then can get the money out of it. So it's a horrible idea. Please don't do it. However, let's say the best solution for you is to, again, create a trust, because then you can say what will happen to your house if something happens to you. And typically people leave it to their children. And for minors, you can set up age when they can get that house, so they don't have to go through court. But if, let's say, it's just you and you have one child and you really don't want to, maybe go through creating a trust, but you would like to get some protection, there are ways that you can take title with your child to, it's kind of a gamble, but it can give you an opportunity maybe to transfer your house to your child without probate or having a trust if your child outlives you. But again, it's a gamble, so I don't advise it, but there are ways.
In case if the person asked the question about the person has a child who is 22, in this case, would that make sense?
You see, again, it's a gamble, because you can be 22 and die in a car accident tomorrow, and your mom can live to 104. So I typically don't recommend it, but there are circumstances where it makes sense for people to do it.
But
Trust would give you the most protection. It's comprehensive. It addresses a lot of situations, and depending on how much you have in your, estate, maybe you only have a house and few bank accounts. It can be a simpler version versus if, you own multiple homes, LLCs, and, investment property.
But look at a few things. So I had so many clients, they don't have paid off houses, but they don't have a trust, which is very silly silly option to have, especially in here. So if something happens to them, state of California makes a lot of money through probate. So state of California doesn't want us to have trust, but trust is really asset protection. So you should put, doesn't matter how much equity you have in the house, your house in asset protection for yourself, for your family, actually.
Thank you. We have a question for Andrew. How to become a financial advisor?
I could steal a line from Dr. Kashkovitz. Call me. Well, to become a financial advisor, ideally, you should go to school.
Which specific school?
Any school that will educate you on investments. Now, a lot of people start by just joining an organization that provides internal schooling, which is fine. Yeah, so a lot of insurance companies provide initial schooling, but then to get being a registered investment advisor like myself, you have to not only have just school, you have to have licenses to be able to transact business in the securities world, that's investments, and then advisory, so you could actually advise someone. So that's different licenses that people should possess. That would be Series 6, 65, 66, and 7. It's a long road, but you don't have to have all of them at once. You could start with one license and join a group and become a team member where you could help solve some issues for the clients of that firm on a smaller level. And then as you learn more, you kind of graduate to the next class, and so forth, and then you could be a full-fledged advisor.
Like Andrew Bonder. Okay, thank you, Andrew. The next question is for Roman Mitros. Are there any good programs for a first-time home buyer right now?
Actually, the good question. Actually, it's been coming up lately a lot because there are a lot of also people came from, the East world, from Russia, from Ukraine, and those people are trying to purchase their house for the first time. And there are different programs that actually help people to purchase their first house with basically program such as 0% down or 3% down. What really these programs are designed for, if you have already a house and you're trying to buy your next house, it means you have a house, so you might have already equity in that house. So when you sell that house and you're trying to buy your next house, you might have some money for the down payment. People who are buying their house for the first time in their lives, they might not have enough saved up in their accounts in order to put down a large down payment. So these lenders, they have created different programs to help people not to have to come up with a big down payment. So there are programs 0% down, 3% down. 5% down. Very popular lately, just came out probably about 3 to 4 months ago, a program where you can put down 0% down as a first-time home buyer. In fact, this program also does the same thing for people who are trying to buy their second house, also 0% down. But it's just people who are buying the house for the first time, their interest rate is going to be about 0.2, 0.3% lower than if it was their second house. So yes, there are programs for first-time home buyers, and the number one thing is the fact that it's 0% down. A lot of times, some people are calling me and they're asking me, well, but I'm not making that much money. I want to buy a house for $500,000. But I don't make enough money. So is there a program for the first-time home buyer? One thing banks don't do, they will not put a borrower in a house that he cannot afford. So the program first-time home buyer is not for people who cannot afford the house. These programs are just helping tool to get into the house with the minimum amount of money out of their pocket. So I hope I answered that.
Thank you, Roman. The next question is for Tom. What happens when the Federal Reserve cuts rates?
They go down. No, that's a joke. So anyway, Roman Yeah. So anyway, Roman kind of addressed this, but the Federal Reserve controls what's called the Federal Open Market Rate, or the overnight bank loan rate. So what they're really affecting is the price that banks pay on their excess reserves as it's loaned to other banks kind of within the market. It really directly affects shorter term obligations. So what happens when the Fed cuts rates? Your CD, certificate of deposit rates, will go down. Money market rates will go down when you invest with the bank. But as you get further out into longer term debt obligations, those are kind of already, as they say, priced in. They were already kind of expecting the Fed to make that interest rate cut, and they think they're pretty happy with where they are. So if you look at longer term obligations like a 10-year treasury or mortgage rates, those weren't necessarily very affected, at least initially, until we see future rate cuts, and those begin to be priced in as well.
Thank you. Question for Amir. What strategies can be used to build long-term wealth through real estate investments?
Well, obviously, whoever played Monopoly game do the same in real life. So nobody won a Monopoly game, by the way, going to the start. You have to buy a house, buy multiple houses, then sell houses, build a hotel. The same here. So you start with obviously your own house where you live, and then you build one rental at least, and maybe combine with the duplexes and stuff. But the goal is you go to the multi-unit apartment complexes, or my favorite would be mobile home parks. So mobile home parks are really recession-proof because people are renting the space from you, from dirt. They don't call if the roof is leaking or toilet is leaking, because you own the dirt. They're paying for the space. The same, similar like a storage units. And that's different ways how you can roll money over with 1031 exchange, so to avoid deferred taxes. But the goal is really start with first house. Even if you think you cannot afford, you can do house hacking. Like I helped one of my clients who said he couldn't afford $3,700 a monthly payment, which is high, but he bought a 4 bedrooms in a townhome and $3,700 a month. He got 3 roommates, and those 3 roommates are paying him $3,300, and he pays $37. So he lives in the house for $400. And then other roommates is paying him mortgage payment. So, and then after he builds enough equity, he can sell, so refinance, and then buy another house. So like Monopoly game.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah.
Add something that I think is very, very important. So when Amir is talking about buying an actual park, please buy the park and not mobile homes. In my experience, it's the worst type of investment. It's not treated as the same as your home that's attached to the land. And even if you do end up buying a mobile home with land, you have to go through probate, because most likely you won't have a trust in that situation. So please, please, please invest in the land and not in the mobile homes themselves.
Mobile parks, not mobile homes.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you, Dima. I often see ads on TV claiming that you can settle IRS debt for just pennies. Is that true?
There is some truth to it. However, we already spoke about offering compromise, which basically is a settlement. And yes, there's some cases when you can settle $1 million debt to the Internal Revenue Service for let's say $5,000 or $6,000, but the person or taxpayer needs to be qualified, and it's not easy to be qualified for that range. So yes, in theory it's possible, but practical, it's very rare.
Thank you. We have 5 more minutes, and my suggestion is to keep this after we finish the radio broadcast. So that's why I wanted to ask each of you say some final words, just final words for this audience. Yeah, and then we will close our radio show, and then we will keep communicating and answering questions. So, Andrew.
Right. Thank you. Again, thank you for all of you who is attending right now this live here in the room, and for those who dialing in, and for the panelists and special guests that just flew in for this event. So to kind of finish up what we were talking in here, I would say that if I had to summarize myself, is that talking to specialists will get you somewhere versus trying to guess and try to do it by yourself. And sometimes your logic might not really coincide with actual rules and regulations and experience. So having a strategic plan and aligning yourself, having the strategic alliance with specialists in different areas, this is your team that could be at your disposal in any space, real estate or investment and retirement, taxation. So that's exactly why these forums are being put together, to educate, show you that there's more than one way of doing things, and most importantly, that time, what I heard, is the biggest ally in everything. Investing in real estate and stocks and retirement plans, all will work if you give time. If you try to do it all in one day, nothing great will come out of it. So you need to give time, and starting early today will bring great dividends and stability in your life versus waiting till the opportune time when you think that is, you will just miss it. And based on my experience of almost 30 years, I've never seen someone winning a lottery like, okay, this was the day that I made the proper decision.
Thank you, Andrew.
Great points. A lot of times people come to us and they ask for our opinion, and then after half an hour or 1 hour of explaining them this or that topic, they finish that conversation with the phrase, well, who knows, my neighbor thinks it's going to be the other way. So it's like, well, then why did you come to me? Why didn't you just listen to your neighbor? But that's a great thing. Listen to the experts and just open up your minds, and hopefully you will stop procrastinating with such things as, I'll start doing it once the interest rate come down, or I'll start doing it once we know who the president is going to be. The president is not going to really change anything. I mean, people still get, people get born, people get married, things happen. We are a growing country, and we need more and more houses in this country, and the economy is growing. Warren Buffett says this is the greatest country in the world because the economy is so great. You can predict what's going to happen. Maybe not now, in 10 years, in 20 years. The sooner you will start doing something, you will win by investing in this country. So yeah, I mean, the sooner we will begin, the better it is. It's like with the presidential elections, the only thing we can really talk about is just joke about it, but not expect anything great out of neither of those candidates, because again, whatever they're saying prior to the election is just they're saying to get elected. What's going to happen later, they cannot change the whole world to just one person because they elected this person or that person. I made a joke yesterday. I want to repeat it today because I am in the industry of mortgages, and my business depends on that. And I want to say, make rates great again. That's it.
Thank you, Roman. Svetlana.
Well, I would like to thank everybody who joined us today and the panelists. And I personally learned a ton, starting from politics to financial advising and how to, deal with IRS if needed, how to pick real estate and where to invest money. So I think I personally will be doing a lot of things tonight and doing a lot of research. And again, of course, I totally agree with the fact that the sooner you start in life investing, whether it is in stock, in real estate, preferably both, the better for you. Always listen to professionals. There is a reason why we spend a lot of time learning things. We continually getting education, and we are here for you. We want you to succeed. So please feel free to reach out to all of us with your questions, comments, and we'll be happy to assist you.
Thank you. Thank you, Svetlana. I like the name of the forum, Family, Finance, and Business. It's applicable to all the spheres of our lives. Dima?
Yeah, thank you for coming and kind of hear us. I would like to echo Andrei, meaning that it's important to talk to your family. However, to make financial decision just because your cousin read something on the internet doesn't make any sense, because cousin may have a totally different situation. So same thing in every part of the life. You know, like dealing with taxes, there's different programs, different scenarios for everything. Working with investing in real estate or stocks, there's different things that you need to know. It's not just how much the return is; it's how much you have to pay taxes on different transactions. So when you need something to decide, it's better to talk to the professional. But there is a solution to every problem or any concern.
And in your case, really, with us, it's the sooner you invest, the better. In your case, if you have a problem with IRS, the sooner you will start handling the problem, the less money you will end up paying.
Not just money, the less, not just headache. Usually people who have tax problems, they can't sleep at night. So the sooner you start, the better you sleep.
Yeah, thank you, Amir.
Your network is your net worth. So meaning surround yourself with experts, bring your network up to bring your net worth up as well. And remember, 9 out of 10 millionaires worldwide are made with real estate.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, in the world of investing, it really helps to adopt a long-term mindset. And I've said it several times, I'll say it again, don't get too overly emotional. It really helps to work with someone like Andrew as a financial advisor that can take a look at your whole financial picture and kind of guide you to the right decisions to make and to meet your goals in the long run without overextending yourself on risk. I'll give you guys an example. From 2004 through 2023, $100,000 in the S&P would have grown to about $536,000 just by staying put and watching it grow. If you missed the 10 best calendar days, simply 10 days, not 10 days per year, just 10 days over that entire 20-year period, your investment would have grown to $291,000, almost reduced by half just by missing 10 calendar days. So stay invested, adopt a plan, and think of the long term.
Thank you. Thank you all for being tonight here and for your engaging questions. A special thank you goes to our host, Andrew Bonder, and our sponsors, Bonder and Associates, Oak Point Events, Citrus Plaza Catering, Ethno FM radio station, the City of Goodness Business Club, and UA Diaspora Com. We hope you found the discussion valuable and feel more empowered in your financial journeys. If you have any further questions or would like to connect with Andrew or our other speakers, feel free to do it. Feel free to reach out to them. And my name is Svetlana Iotka. I am a journalist and the managing partner of the City of Goodness Business Club, and I was your host tonight. Have a great evening. Goodbye.
Вы слушали трансляцию экономического форума, который только что закончился в конференц-зале Oak Point Events в Сакраменто. Форум был организован Bonder and Associates and City of Goodness Business Club. В нем приняли участие Андрей Бондарь, Роман Митрос, Светлана Осокина, Дима Бродский, Амир Чачкович и Том Маклоклин. Если вы по тем или иным причинам не смогли принять участие в этом экономическом форуме и не имели возможности послушать нашу трансляцию в социальных сетях, то имейте в виду, что вы всегда можете послушать запись этого форума в Фейсбуке, на Ютубе и на радио Ethno FM. Напомню также, что такие форумы регулярно проводятся в Сакраменто, поэтому следите за нашими объявлениями и приходите на будущие форумы, которые расширят ваши познания в финансовой сфере Америки. Всего вам доброго.